Mr.
President. Thank you, Mr. President.
The microphone. Yes. Just now I understood why our Council of Europe is in trouble. We are not able to understand what does it mean cooperation and mutual dialogue. And first of all, I want to answer to my friend, with whom we have a very good relationship, with Mr. Pocek. Yes, dear friends, during the Legal Affairs Committee, we demonstrated, as an Azerbaijan, constructive approach. Because some paragraphs within this report mention the developments and progress in Azerbaijan. Of course, we have problems, and we have decided to work together, to be constructive, to open the dialogue, to be closer to the Council of Europe. And this is an approach which demonstrated the Azerbaijani side. But what had happened after 1 month of these Paris discussions? The rapporteur, which presented just now the report, made a statement. She said, regime, the full-fledged member of the Council of Europe, regime demonstrated its undemocratic nature. This is a member of the Council of Europe. Second, she officially interfered into the parliamentary elections which we have been waiting in February. And with this, she damaged, she broke the breach which Azerbaijani side presented to the Council of Europe. This is the answer to Azerbaijani questions. This is the answer to developments which we made together with the Council of Europe. Decrees which President signed, pardoning decrees, amnesty acts, and all initiatives from Azerbaijani side. This is the answer of the Council of Europe. This is the answer why Council of Europe is in trouble. Because instead of understanding that we are ready to cooperate, and let me remind you, respectable rapporteur, that at the very beginning of our negotiations, you agreed as a compromise that reported cases of political prisoners will be used in the report. And then you refused and started to humiliate, to pressure, to do your best in order to undermine my country. Azerbaijan will never accept this kind of approach, and we will be fighting against this. But we are ready for dialogue. We are ready for cooperation. And vivid example of that, my statement at the Legal Affairs Committee in Paris. We did it, but what we got in response? Humiliation, undermining. See to the list of the speakers. All Armenian delegation is in the list. Why? Those who prosecuted former president, who constitutional president under the arrest, thinking about democracy in my country. That's unfair, and we are not able to accept this kind of approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seyidov.
Dear colleagues, I want to thank you all for an interesting debate. And I would especially like to thank Mr. Pocek and Mr. Shanak for their support and for their kind words about my report. As to the criticism that my work has faced by some colleagues here in this room, I would like to touch upon a few points. First of all, that there is no universally agreed definition of political prisoners. Perhaps you might be right, dear colleagues, but this assembly does have an adopted definition of a political prisoner. I read that out in my speech. This assembly has already agreed on it, and that has not changed. Many describe my report as biased. Many describe this report as unfair towards Azerbaijan. But the recommendation and the resolution that is before you bases solely and really focuses on the judgments of the European Court of Human Rights. You cannot dispute the fact that the European Court of Human Rights, its findings are binding and authoritative. And I really think that you should value the judgments of the European Court of Human Rights. As to Mr. Seyidov's criticisms, first of all, he talked about negotiations, about the title of the report. I wouldn't necessarily call it negotiations, to be open to the sensitivities of both sides when it comes to, first of all, naming the report, but also my assurances that I would approach this investigation, that I would approach this report with an open mind, with no foregone conclusion. But I'm sorry, Mr. Seyidov, that was not a promise that I wouldn't reach a conclusion once my study was complete. Of course, I cannot promise you that I will find in your favor. So another thing that Mr. Seyidov said is that I interfered in the Azeri elections with my statement. I'm sorry, but no. Excluding the opposition from participating in the elections is interfering in the elections, not my expression, not the fact that I criticize this fact. And in terms of Mr. Seyidov's position, which has clearly changed since the committee unanimously adopted this report in Paris in December, once the committee adopts the resolution, adopts the report, it becomes the committee's report, it becomes the committee's draft resolution. And Mr. Seyidov, you cannot take your vote back to punish me for speaking my mind. No, you can't take your vote back for punishing me for speaking my mind. And I think that this attitude, this mentality, is exactly the problem in Azerbaijan. You punish people for speaking their minds. This is the resolution of the Legal Affairs Committee. I ask you all to support it. I hope we can work towards a good solution for the people of Azerbaijan together. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the chair